Welcome to Wake, a cold reading of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, just to hear it out loud. Join Toby Malone and TJ Young, along with some special friends, as we puzzle our way through what we once thought was an unreadable book to produce a surprisingly listenable podcast. It is Sunday, October 13th, 2024. It has been 149 days since we've started reading, with 370... Oh, yeah, I'm right. I suddenly went, wait, that's not right. With 300... I'm going to keep this in. With 370 pages complete of 628, meaning we have 258 pages left to go and are 58.92% of the way through Finnegans Wake. Welcome to episode 25 of Wake, the silver anniversary of the podcast that always shines bright as we work towards fulfilling a long-held bucket list item, reading James Joyce's Finnegans Wake out loud just once. I am your host, Toby Malone, joined once more by the man who always knows how to bring the love to every room, TJ Young. Hi, TJ.
That was sweet. I'm blushing, which is... to be 25 episodes in.
It's amazing. This is our anniversary episode, and you always know how to make everyone feel good on an anniversary or a celebration, so I'm glad you're here with us.
You know what's kind of crazy, though? And this is truthful. It was about this time 6 years ago that we met. Almost 7 years ago.
That's true. That's right. So this is another anniversary of sorts when we met at the Kennedy Center, American College Theatre Festival in New Jersey.
Planning that thing and instantly hit it off.
Yes, and then 6 years later, look where we are. We're here, 25 episodes into an impenetrable book that we are finding all sorts of delightful. Speaking of all sorts of delightful, here with us after the arm twisting of all arm twistings, the man who we thought would never agree to join us, it is Taylor Hoover. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you. I don't remember that much arm twisting. It was just kind of like all right, why not?
I kept saying to TJ, when's Taylor coming on? He's like, oh, no, he's probably not going to. So maybe it's just TJ trying to run interference for you.
You know how it is. You try to protect people from things, and then I was like, hey, you want to do this thing? I called him in the middle of work. He's like, yeah, sure. So...
I think there were a few times though when you were showing Taylor some of the text that we were looking for. So Taylor, when TJ showed you some of these words, what was your immediate reaction to that?
I have drifted into the kitchen as he's been reading before and just been baffled, like scrunching up my face, being like, "This is English, right?"
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good reaction. Yeah, and this is also a rare episode, as you might have picked up from context clues there, that this is a rare episode in which two of our readers are in the same room. TJ and Taylor are on the same, or at least in the same, are you on the same mic? Or at least
we're on the same mic. We are sharing
right.
Corner of a table. We can touch hands in case one person has a moment in the middle of the reading.
Perfect. This makes the tap out much, much easier. So that will be fine if that ever comes to it. But it never comes up, so that's okay. And you two are just back from Italy, celebrating a wedding where TJ was a celebrant. How was your adventure in where were you, in Milan?
We flew into Milan, and then we took a 2-hour and 45-minute van ride to Pontremoli, and then we spent the last evening in Milan again after took a car to Parma, and then the train over to Milan.
Pontremoli.
I promise you.
You now sound like you're getting into Joyce. Pontremoli.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. The food was great. It was mushroom season. I love mushrooms. So that was really cool. We got to see a castle, which, the U.S. doesn't necessarily have castles.
Right.
So that was always fun. We ate a lot. We drank a lot of wine. And there's something about that Italian wine that doesn't leave you hungover. So we were good. I will say the flight there and the flight back, as someone who travels internationally, you know how it is. It's just rough.
Really brutal.
Yeah. Particularly if you don't get that sleep.
I think it was like 2 30-hour travel days.
Right. Yeah, I feel those. And usually it's the sitting around in airports that's the worst part. Waiting for the 6-hour layover to finish or whatever.
Yeah, the thing I realized about especially international flights is that with the rate of like food service and drinks that come by, the ability to sleep is so limited because every 45 minutes you're interrupted by someone trying to shove peanuts in your hand. You're like, I just kind of want to be left alone on this bus in the sky.
Flight attendant who wants to turn your light on for you.
Oh yeah, we were both reading the same book. We're reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is a great book. And it was late. It was night. People were trying to sleep, and we had enough ambient light from both the TV screens in front of us and stuff like that we could read just fine.
Right.
And the flight attendant came by, turned my light on first, and I was like, "Thank you," and I turned it off. And then he came by and asked Taylor, "Hey, do you know where your light is?" He's like, "I do, but I'm fine. Thank you so much." And then he passed by the third time and just reached over my body to turn Taylor's light on. And when Taylor just turned it off again, we're like, we don't need the light. We're trying to be kind to people.
At least it weren't turning the lights on while you were trying to sleep. That would have been
true.
Truly like something out of Star Trek.
Just entertaining himself by people.
Just messing with people. He's filming it for his blog. Yeah. He's putting it on TikTok.
We did both finish that book on the trip, which was great.
Right. Good. Well, excellent. Well, finishing books is what we like to do around here.
We're working on this one.
That's right. And this anniversary episode also feels like a very auspicious one for you to join us on, Taylor, since you and TJ are getting married next year. And that is likely the next time I get to see you both in person. So I'm super excited to come down and join that groomsmen's party. How's the wedding planning going? How are we going? Have we got we a bit further along?
You get to answer that one.
Okay. We have a venue. We have a caterer. We have our parties picked out, and we're working on the list. We're not that far behind. He has a spreadsheet, and we're not that far behind.
So you don't have a list of guests?
No. Because, the question is, how many of my family are realistically going to come from Texas? And my mom's like, just send them an invite anyway. My fear is this. I send them an invite anyway, and then they're like, yeah, sure. I'd rather not. And plus, I have plenty of cousins who got married and did all this stuff without me. So I'm like, they're fine. They're cool.
Right.
But Taylor's family is big, right? So right now...
And they're in state, right? They're just upstate?
Most of them, yeah. But it is so big. There comes a point where I don't know who the mandatory invites are.
Right.
Because, just with, immediate family, aunts, uncles, cousins, we're at, 80. So,
right. And then you get in that situation where if you say don't invite the cousins, then aunts and uncles get offended. And
I mean, I got to invite the cousins. That would be a huge offense.
Yeah, but then there's a second cousin or a third cousin, and you think, I don't see
that's where it gets
very much. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we started doing numbers. Let's say there's 70 people on Taylor's side. We each have 7 people on our side. Most of them have significant others. So that's another, 28 people. And so we're already at 100 before any Texas people of my family show up.
Yeah.
Or any, I don't know, friends that we want to come. So we are, I'm currently in verbal negotiations with my mother on the number, and I know that Taylor will be soon.
Right. Yeah. It's tricky. When I got married, it was a lot of my parents inviting people that they wanted to be at the wedding, but because they were paying for it, we were just like, okay, fine, whatever. So for years afterwards, we'd bump into someone in the street and my wife would be like, who was that? And I'm like, well, they were at our wedding. And it was just, I'm not really sure, but they gave us a set of steak knives, so we've got to be nice. Well, good luck with the planning. I'm sure it's all going to go well. I'm very much looking forward to coming down. We're still trying to decide who from our house is coming down. Part of me is
bring the crew.
I want to bring the whole family, but then I also think we'll probably have more fun if we leave the kids at home. But then I think the kids will have fun if they come. So
right,
we had fun in Pittsburgh last time we came, so we might all just head down.
It is worth mentioning, this is like the woods of Pennsylvania.
Right.
I grew up in a literal field, and this is somehow more remote than that. So
Okay, well, perfect. As long as there's music and a dance floor, my kids will be very happy.
yeah, we got that.
Done,
Yeah,
done, and done.
yeah,
You know.
absolutely. Yeah, and in terms of the wedding stuff, it's I mean, I'll note under the risk of jinxing things on my end, not yours, is that with our 25th anniversary, I want to talk about my plans for my 25th wedding anniversary, which is going to be in March 2026. And I say jinx because we've planned this trip at least 3 times in the past and we've never got there. But we determined this time is our plan is to return to the land of our roots and spend a couple of weeks touring Ireland for our wedding anniversary. And so I say this because, of course, we're going to be visiting all the Joyce hotspots, much to my wife's chagrin.
I can see the day it comes up on the itinerary.
Yeah, we're going to walk. We're going to follow Bloom's footsteps around Dublin, and then we're going to go to the Irish Literature Museum, and then. Yeah, it's it maybe I'll be a little less Joyce fixated by the time we get there, but and I assume that along the way we'll be able to meet up with a lot of the many Irish purists that we've offended along the way in recording the Wake podcast.
See, what you have to do is you have to have a shirt with a QR code to the podcast.
That's it. Yeah, right.
So you can say, "Mad at me yet? Listen to this."
Here we go. So Taylor, what is your relationship with? Have you got any kind of relationship with Joyce in your past reading?
Was racking my brain trying to remember if I'd read anything in my creative writing undergrad, and I don't think I have. So the extent of my relationship is I know he's Irish, and he was briefly mentioned in Tron Legacy.
He was in. Wow! Tell me more about this. How was he mentioned?
He one of the characters is a program who's being like taught by Kevin Flynn, and he has a bookshelf of all the books he can remember. And she's looking through them. She goes, "Well, to be honest, James Joyce is my favorite." She looks over at the protagonist, like, "Do you know James Joyce?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." And then she gets all excited, like, "What's he like?" Like, not understanding that.
Right.
He's just aware of him.
Right. Okay. Well, still, I mean, I love that Joyce is often dropped as the shorthand for smart guy stuff you probably haven't read. So we don't actually need to go into any detail. We can just sort of say Ulysses or Finnegans Wake or whatever. So yeah, and so there's certainly no. I love that little connection though, that little reference. But there's certainly no shame in not having read him because very few of us have. Have you had a chance to listen to any of the podcast yet? Or
I have not.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
To be fair, TJ has so many podcasts out there that it's almost like we're saturated with content.
You know what? You're not. It's funny because I sent you a text 2 weeks ago. I was like, I totally forgot I did this podcast interview.
That's right. Yeah. So, well, you got that much content out there. You can't be expected to listen to everything. However, I will say that I listen to every episode of TJ's podcast. So I just
listen to the episodes of the movies you watch.
Yeah, that's still.
You don't want to get a spoiler.
True, that's a lot. That's a lot of them.
That is a lot of them. But
I can hear TJ's half of all the episodes he records.
That is true. You're in the room. So
I missed part of the conversation though.
That's I would say that's the best bit, but
doubtful.
No,
and then also I will say that I have listened to more episodes of Wake than I have of GMWKS.
Yeah, every now and then I'll be listening to GMWKS and I'll text TJ and be like, "There's 40 seconds of silence at the 57-second mark," and he's like, "Oh, sorry," and he goes and snips it out.
Sometimes, truthfully, I'll edit it right before class on Friday morning, and the person I share an office with is, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm editing the podcast," as I'm like answering, yeah.
Yeah, I edited an episode of Wake a couple of weeks ago, sitting on in the bleachers at my son's baseball game, watching him play baseball. I brought my laptop with me and it was just like editing away and thinking, well, this is generally probably not how Joyce is handled, but
sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
You do, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, what we've got to do now, though, is get to reading. As always, we're reading from the Penguin Modern Classics edition of Finnegans Wake. Taylor, how are you feeling about a cold read, the concept of a cold read? Is this something you've had a chance to do before?
So I see underlined, there's just nutted out PBI.
That's from last episode.
No, I know. I'm just like, I feel like if I just like keep a loose tongue and kind of
Yeah, that's the
consider
way
it
to do it.
vaguely Appalachian, I can get through it.
Yes, yes, I want to hear that. An episode, recent episode that we had recorded. Our guest reader went into a Texan sheriff's accent in in great
That's
detail.
right.
So it was Kahari that really went for it. So look, I would love to hear a bit of Appalachian Joyce. So let's let's be open to that. We're reading. So from that, we're reading from the Penguin Modern Classics edition, published in 2000 with a foreword by Seamus Dean. Today we're reading the fourth part of chapter 2-3, from pages 370 to 382 in this edition. This is a segment entitled Tales at the Inn, a chapter obscured by heavy drink, with teller and tale melting into each other, and includes the tale of After Last Orders by the Oxford World's Classic edition of 2012, which also includes brief summaries of what is happening in each subsection, which we'll address at the end of the reading. And as always, Taylor, if you need to tap out, just give us a tap out sign and we will jump in to save you. There is no...
No shame.
No shame, and just let the words happen to you. And now, without further ado, Finnegans Wake.
Stunner of Oddstods on Blue Bleeding Boar Horse. What Sorson's head subrises thus twos out of Rumpumplican Oak, with well we cannot say whom we are looking through now face. It is Noggin's Wilk, thus the both sides of seats of the big slaps, of the bog chaps, of the Bullabar, of the Marangar, of the Lachlan Gonlin Lutter, of the foof of the four-thumbed Shiplazoid.
Bemounts. It is Polysign Stunner, the Soxern boy, to pump the fire of the lewd into those souls of Bacchus, half-sour dovers, till fell they, dead war, not verdict. And welly time he was racing their smusty Folskens no dudder, Yostrolerd, for their poopshires, a hole on 'em, fire man Nuther, and now. Shatten up ship, beow yow yow mints, nomo, cladoleskins, chicken levers, all assured for Catholic gizzards, stole away there, gluttony of stanks, porters' failures, and spirituous sunctors, om.
As these vitupetards in his bosom heated strangleholder, bush brows, nubbly nape, swingly swangers, sunken trunk, that from tin of this cluckin' hatted runst slapoddle slup, for him had hoard from fard a piping, as of dour douchey was a Sigurdson, he cooed that loud nor he was young. He could bad cod nor he was grey, like water parted from the say.
Osita, lift it. Lift at it, Osita. From the say. Away from the say. Him. Here hasting he, himmed, re-remember all the chubs, chips, chaffs, chunkin pucks, and chainay chimbels that he had mistra butted in port, pub, park, pantry, and poultry house, while they, feathered, and others that were mostly concerned to cuptering the last ropes of summer down through their grooves of blandering, ere the Saxon locked at the door, which he would shunten sure, and lave them to stir. For be all rules of sport 'tis right that youth be dowered to charm the night, whilst age is dumped to mind the day when Warther parted from the say, the humming is coming, ends way on's way.
Fingal McKingschmard, Obisum Bergier's benefice. He was bow and hem and scrape and him, and recalcitrant to the right about, and these probinoblicos climatizing for an extension on his hostelry. with his charge hand bombing their airs. Tid's genman plays. She been going sother off Alminother unawares. You hear Nort Farwellen's roaster, a shuffle, the wave they. From Dancing Tree till Sutton Stone, there's lads no lie would filch a crown, to mull their sack and brew their tay, with water parted from the say.
Lee Long, Awanda Hose, Selvan-born and routed to Rochelle Lane, and Liberties, those Mongol Guard minstrelsers are Marshal Singh, Par Tune Piped Road, Underwear, perked on Hollow Hill, that poor man of lions, good Duke Wellington, hung on come errand words, had her combed to the bell's bows and be contracted by the mousers. Now it is town again, Londmere of Dublin, and of course the taller plays the daughter of his eyes with her. Mock the wantst, why thou we am I me alike a pose of poeter peast, while the dumb he shoots the shopper rope, and they all pour forth. Sans Butley, Tupperter Sower, the rogue engine rand, Bartler of the Buin, still are Benjamin Lifest, sometime Franklin to the city, whereas Big rented him appears half subporters for his arms, Josiah Pipkin, Amos Love, Raoul Lee, February, Blaze Tobatot, Jeremy Yaup, Francis de Loomis, Hardy Smith, and Sequin Petit, followed by the snug saloon synod of our Cafe Barangi, the Cinesators.
Because they wanted to get out by the goat way, afore the sheep was loosed for to wish the Wobbleton White Lake Welshers, Kelly Keckle, and save back to Brown Hazelwood from all the Dennis Doolins on the labious banks of the Swensoon Snew Westner, turned again Weasting home by Danesbury Common, and they onely, dually, throughly, fairly after rainy draining founty buckets, chalk 'em up empty, till they caught the wind abroad, alley loafers, passing gearing, all the rockers on the roads, and all the boots in the streets.
Oh dear, ahoy! Last ye, laudsmen, hasty hosty, for an andonation of mirror fixation and the ludification of the pauldination. His bludgeons bruck, his drums is tore, for Spuds will keep the hat he wore and roll in clover in on his clay by water parted from the say.
Hray, free rogue mountain, to do mild well, to Coria Wind and Glowry, are now met by Brownaboy Fwinanuans, former for a lynching partying of his burgerboo. The Shanavan walked, Renton roarin' batteries dorans, and the whistling thief o' Renoran, with a catch of her cunning like and nowhere a keener.
The four elders were Aspoluti at their wet sin in the mailing waters, trying to hide, seek, because number one living at Bothersby North, and he was trying to hide, seek, and number two digged up Poor's Court Soother, trying to hide, seek, and number three he sleeped with Lily Teckles at the eats, and he was trying to hide, seek, and the last with the celluloid dongi, he was bereaved at the Mohor Bohor to the Wasti, and they were all trying to and baffling with the Walters of whom see Doomp see Walters of high, sink, high, sink, high, oh high, sink a sink.
Waves. The gangsters strain and angers up as Hoisty rears the cannon cup to speed the boogers bark away, o'er water parted from the say.
Hawkus, chiefest, Ebby Nunsties. He shook be a-shaped by him-shelved, hiding that shape in his goat. And for reshembling so bearshfell the magreedy sprints of Roger, the thud. Hey ho hey say, our kingdom from our horse. Bruni Lano's woolies on Branny Lonnie's hairy parts. And the hunk in his trunk it would be at insow foul, the manner of that cellaring to a pig's trough. Stop his lay sense, ink him. You would think him all Dublin staking his lordship like a gourd on punchin'. Deblinity divined. Hole hunting the perk on a methodological mission whenever there's imberillas. And calling Rena Rona Rainet Ronane. To what mine answer is a Lehman's. Adelays, Beatles, and post-billers heard him. 3 points to 1. Ericus Vericus corrupted into ware eggs. Dummy up, distillery. Brewery aboo. Run him a John's Gate down James's Lane, begetting a wife which begame his niece by pouring her young things into skin ties. That was when he had dizzy spells, till Gladstool's pillules made him ride as the mole, thanks to his Hudo brass beard. Loden broke the long man, now he can't seals under various persons, but is always that Rourke Relly. On consideration for the musicers, he ought to have down it. Pass out your cheeks, why don't you? Penalty, please. There you'll know how water bartered the bullhead that passed our alley. We just are upside down singing, whatever the dimkim's murmur allability she pulls in or out heads. This is not the end of this by no manner means. When you've bled till your bone, it crops out in your flesh. To tell how your mead of mard is made of. All old Daggerson's dodges, one conning, one's copying, and that's what Wonderland's Wonderladd'll flaunt to the fair. A trance-done boy script with titivits by. You'll read it tomorrow, man, with the curds on the table. A nig for a nog and thrate for a throat. The auditor learns, still pumping on talkin' white radlumps, glenks. In pre-plays to Anonymes left-hinted palinode, obviously inspitterebed by a subspecious connection. Note the notes of admiration. See the signs of suspicion. Count the semi-demicolons. Screamer caps and invented gommers. Quoits punt lost. Forced to farce. The pipette will say anything at all for a change. And you know what a glove means in murderous jurluct. Fewer to feud and rompant culoticism, a fugle for the gleeman and save sit and sew, and a pants out zinned on the Doherty's duckboard pointing to peace at home. In some law and order on love and order. Wait till we hear the Boyer Biscop reeling around your poster or lector. Epistle made demology for deep Dorfy doubtlings, as we'll lay till break of day in the bunk of Baskey. Oh, our island Roman duty. Well tried, Buckstiff. Bat in, boot. Sell him a breach contract, the vendorer, the bylawer. 1 hide, sack, hick. 2 stick, holst, lucky. Finish, make goal. First you a nomad, next you a Neymar, now you're Numa, and soon you'll be Nomon. Hence council's ecclesiast. There's every resumption. The forging Ophiels is on the shove to lay you out dossier. Darby's in the yard planning it on you, plot and edgings, the whispering peeler after cooks wearing an ill formation. The find of his kind. An artist, sir, and dirt cheap at a sovereign a skull. He knows his Finsbury follies backwoods, so you better see to your regent refutation. A scare wind is rifing again about nice boys going native. You know who was wrote about in the Orange Book of East Chapel? Basil and the 2 other men from King's Avenants. Just press this cold brand against your brow for a mow. Canefully. The sinus a curse. That's it. Hung chung eggily fella. Now speak he tell numpty wumpty top sowies belong a him pigeon. Secret things are other persons placed there covered not. How you fell from story to story like a sagasand to lie. Enfilmung infirmity, on the because alleging to having a finger a fuddling in pudding and pie. And here's the witnesses. Glue on to him, Greavy, bottom anchor, Nordease, and kick, killy kick for the house that Duke built. Wait till they send you to sleep, Scowpow, by Jura's Cruces. Then old Humphrey Dumphy'll be blasted to bumboards by the youthful herald who would once you were. He'd be our chosen one in the matter of Britas more than an Arthur. But we'll wake and see. The holes pores riches of ours, hundreds of manhoods and warmhoods. 2 cents, 2 mils, and 2 merds. And it's all us rangers you'll be facing in the box before the 12th correctional. Like one man gel, between all the Mrs. Mount Sackvilles in their half-moon hemicycles, grasping to gidleys to die for the shame. Just hold hard till the one we leapt out gets her yearing. Hired in cameras extra, with his honour Sir Packer on the binge. So yelp your guilt and kit's the buck. You'll have loss of fame from Wimmergame's fake. Forwards, one bully son growing the goff and his twinger read out by the Nazi priors. You fought as our there never woxen up, did you, Crockett? It will wecker your ears, that it will. When hives the court to exchequer, 'tis the child which gives the sire away. Good for you, Richmond Rover. Scrum around, our side. Let him have another between the spindlers. A grand game. Daily Mounts decisive. Don Governors Buckley and the Tara Tribune sporting the insides of Rooty and General, and little Mrs. Excara Sissers is bribing the half prices to pray for her widower in his gravest embezzlement. You on her, Hosey Jigsies, that'll be some non-stop merriment. You in your stolen mason anvil, Magnes, and her burrowed-in Birknest churches clouses. Fummel Cookamul with Grainine availed, playing down the slavey touch. Much as she was when the fancy cut her out, collecting milestones espied her a seesaw on a fern. So nim, he said, a dat of Jew, between Furry Ben and Ferry Bree. In this tear Viclo, which he loafed, the smiling ever. If you pulls me over, pay me, Fries. A tailor would adapt his corking trudges onto any shape at sea. A dress deceitfold of wovens weird. The wonder of the woman in the world together, Moya, and the lovablest Lima since Eineen McCormick, McCourt, McCon, O'Tuckins, McCundred. Only that she is a little width wider got. Be moving a bog. You cannot make a limousine lady out of a hillman minx. Listen till you hear the mudquirt accent. This is a Bulgin Horaces. This is a Wallen Indulgencies. This is Flemish tick. Scapulars, beads, and a scump of a candle. Hubert was a hunter. Chemins, Delacroix, and Roiserette's eggs. All the trimmings of the tree that she picked up after the Clontar Vosterloost when O'Brien MacBruiser met Norris Knobnut. Be cracking his coconut between his knees. Ump thump. Here, innkeeper, it's the Doterine's Wedness morn. Delphin dringing, Grusham undergang, and the real Hymernian stringing strong at knocker. Holy and massaltold. You ought to tack a dose of fruit. Sauce. You're getting Hoovier, a 12-stone Hoovier. Full ends a 12-stone Hoovier in your corpus entis, and it scurves you right, demne. Aren't as unclish arms, they make but nishtia you bound not to loose is gone on Neffin, since she clapped her charmer on him at Gorma Gareen, at the gunting, munting, hunting, punting. The H is in her blood, arrah, for a frecklesome, fresh, cheeky, sweet-worded lop squeezer. And he shows how he'll pick him the lock of her fancy. Pogue, and a good jump, Powell. Clean over all their heads. We could kiss him for that one, couldn't we, Huggins? Sparks is the footer to hands off Nancy's. Scaldhead pursue. Before you bunkle doodle down upon your Burton chop again after them 3 blows from time, drink and hurry. The same 3 that nursed you, Skerry, Bad Balls, and the Grey One. All of your own club too, with a fistful of borry berries were from the masses for to feed you living and dying. Buy bran biscuits, you'll never say dog, and be in the finest of companies. Morialte and Knifer Rope Walker and Rowley the Barrel, with Longbow of the Lie, Slick of the Trick and Blina Kessel of the Brogue. Clan Ruckard forever, The fen, the kin of all fens, deaf to the winds when for croona creena, fished, and it's not now saying how we are the ware who's softing what rushes. Merry Virgin forbed, but of they never eat soul fried, they're acting it now. With Easter greeting, Angus, the keykeeper of the keys of the 7 doors of the Dreamadory in the house of the household of Hayoch Haysaysaith. Whitmore, Whatmore, give it over, give it up. Morgraw, head of a helo, chest of a champnon, eye of a gull. What you'd if he'd... The groom is in the greenhouse, gatling out his gun. That lad's the star for Lanigan's Ball. Now drive on the navel, that shall burn shock. Never mind your gibbous. Slip on your rope and collar and draw the noose bag on your head. Nobody will know or heed you, Posthumus, if you skip around Skillymartin by the back and come front Slumutron to beg in one of the shaver's sailor suits. 3 climbs, 3 quicken 3s in a garb of 9. We'll split to see you moldum impervious. A wing for old boy Wesley Wanderer. Well spat, witty wagtail. Now pion to Bishop's 4th. Move! There's mumblesome wadding merch cranking up to the hornmunium. Drog us out, Ivy Eve in the hall of alum. The finices of poetry wed music. Feeling the jitters? You'll be as tight as Trevette when the knot's nutted on. Now as you never, Pina and Queena are duetting a giggle for giggle, and the Bradine Alana is lost in her diamond waiting. What a magnificent jest you will show us this gallus day. Clean and easy be the hooker, and a free for croaks after, and Dublin are out for it. So is Rathfin, and hike his the hearse and 4 horses with the interprovincial crucifixioners throwing lots inside to know who's to be their gosson and whereas to break the news to Morhor. How our meter builder his full in the slip. And who will wager but he'll shonny boy be, the flesh lump fleeter from posh to penka, and all he bears subconscious inkling shadowed on soul skin. It's segnet yours, the strake of a hin? Nup. Laying the cloth to 4 of them, and thanking the fish in core of them to pass the grace for God's sake. Amon, Mr. Justitian Matthews, and Mr. Justitian Marks, and Mr. Justitian Luke de Luke, and Mr. Justinian Johnston. And the escort see behind. Help, help, hooray! All up, all sup, fall ghouls to nail. Cut it down, mates, look slippy. They've got a daith with a swimming pool. Dang, ding, dong, dung, dinin. Isn't it great? He is swaying above us for his good and ours. Fly your balloons, Dannies and Dennises. He's doorknobs dead, and Annie Delap is free. One's more. We could ate you, Pa Buckus, and imbibe through you, reassurance in the wild lake of godliness. One fledge, one brood, till hum comes every birdie. Ha the Thurman, ha the trader, ha the tra, Arashore, and he's the monarch of Araland, over since he horrored than his name in thunder. And seen it running up in fuse fire essence in the flash market, PRCRLL Royloy. Of the roarless rattlary, the looning blue bolted all luck truck all trome conductor, the unnamed non-Irish blooded that becomes a green inslender overnight, but we're malting superstitutes out of his false thornton guts. Tried Mark Easterlings, signed Sol Directo Cunnick Ricks, advertised Ord Mac Morkin Coven How. There's a great conversion, min. Cucus, find his Caucasus, from his Moto Mitu Solum through Bully and Cowley and Diggory Dock down to a baseness as usual? He's a light there still by Mike. Lucifer, bung! Bring forth your deed. Bang! Till is the right time. Bang! Partick Thistle against St. Megan's against Bristol Palace against the Walsall. Putsch! Timor mortis tister bere. The plague will soon be over, rats. Let's sin. Gay ton't. All we wants is to get peace for possession. We didn't understand why you said about 13 to a loaf, and so kindly I repeat. Or leaden alones of their langorge, parasitifaner, per pound of our Edelwest idle warts. Shaw and Shay are lorning obscene, so hurgle up, Grandfather, and gurgle me gurk. You can't impose on Fray shouters like us. Every tub here spucks his own fat. Hang coercion everyhow. and smother Bok Graham's laws, but wear a drippin' to gay league at all at once. In the begunning is the void, in the muddle is the sound dance, and therein after you're in the unbewised again. Van Vussi Volsey, you talkers, dunskers, brogue men, we our souls' speech obstruct hostery. Silence in thought, spreech, wear an artful of outer no sense. Popor, wo wo, momery twelfths, no broad. That was a good one, ha! So it will be quite a material what may, father, be unveloped for you, old mighty, when it's aped to foul a Delphian in the Manung. Ha ha! Talk of Paddy Bark's echo. Kick knock, cocknassel, knock castle. Muck! And you'll nose it, oh, you'll nose it without warn word from we. We don't know the sender to whom, but you'll find chicken chuggers taking the treacly shortcake with bugle and the bitch, pairs a drawsing and horse mares procession tighting up under the threes. Stop. Press stop. To press. Stop. All to press. Stop. And be the same talking whereabouts hose tansies, dat sure is celebrated word. Bing bong, saxaluta, for congesters are sold as prey. Snap it up in the loose, Patchy the Blank. Anyone can see you're a son of a gunnel. Fellow him up too, Carlo. Woes to the worm quashed, aye, and a war to the winner. Think of Arian's wall and the fall of Toss. Give him another fort of volley holly doodle'em. His light's not all out yet, the liverpooser. Boo-hoo-hoo, it oos! With 7 whores always in the home of his thinking things, his nod loddles dome of his noise lissel orts, 2 Idas, 2 Evas, 2 Nessies, and Ruby Juby. Fuck! No wonder, pipes his kirtles, that the stings at like a rainbock. One bed night he had the deliciums, that they were all queens mobbing him. Fell stiff. Oh, ho, 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 ah, he, abdicate yourself. It just gegs our goads. He'll be the death of us. Papa, popo, pop, cuddle, Sam Blind Day Rudder. Your sword faith, you well putty rota. What we waits be after, why for we come a-gooting, none of you, cock icy. You keep that henner yarn and her 40-cantle glim look behind her. We might do with Rubeny leases. But of all your waning, send us out your peppy-decked ales, and you'll not be such a bad lot. The rye is well for who is a mind, but the Whitney one is proper lovely. Bank! We sincerely trust that Mrs. with the kiddies of sweet Gortine has not bank to their very least tittles deranged if in bunk. We graciously augur for your megas are bank, bonk, to sloop in with all sorts of ad ceteris and ad suderus. It's our last fight, Megantic, fear you will. The refugees took to hailing the time the pass. There goes the black watch women all in white, flaxed up per gad. Right toe Armitage, tem for tam at Timothy Hall. We've been carried away beyond Bournes and Bowers, so we'll leave it to Kehoe, Dannelly, and Pickhamheim, the 3 musketeers at the end of this age that had it from variance Katie Sherritt, that had it from variance Katie Sherritt's man, for the Bonifaces of Blash White and Blush Red of the Aqua Santa Liffey Patrol, to wind up and to tells of all befalls after that, to mocked majesty in the melancholied mansion. So you were saying, boys? Anyhow, he what?
So anyhow, me lumps and mumpos of the Who's Uncommons. After that, to wind up that long to back knuckled get together. Thanks be to Giving Day at Glenfinskey and La Vala, the anniversary of his finest homie Camolian. After the same barbecue bean feast was all over poor old hospitable corn and egg factor, King Roderick O'Connor, the paramount chief Pole March, and the last pre-electric king of Ireland, who was anything you say yourself between 50-odd and 50 even years of age at the time after the so-called Last Supper he greatly gave in his umbraguous house of the 100 bottles with the radio beamer tower and its hangars, chimneys and equilines, or at least he wasn't actually the then last king of all Ireland for the time being, for the jolly good reason that he was still such as he was the eminent king of all Ireland himself after the last preeminent king of all Ireland, the Wilhelm Jalky old top that went before him in the Taharan dynasty, King Arth Mockmorrow Knockenough of the leathered legions, now of parts unknown. God guard his generous comic songbook soul, that put a poached fowl in the poor man's pot before he took to his pallias with the weeping eczema for better or worse, until he went under the grass quilt on us. Nevertheless, the year the sugar was scarce, and we to lather and shave and frizzle him like a bald surge buoy, and himself down to 3 cows, that was meat and drink and dogs and washing to him. 'Tis good cause we have to remember it, going through summer sultering tri- summer sultrings of snow and sleet with the widow Nolan's goats and the brownies girls neats anyhow, until wait till I tell you. What did he do? Poor old Roderick O'Connor Rex, the auspicious waterproof monarch of all Ireland, when he found himself all alone by himself in his guard old hand-we-down pile, after all of them had all gone off with themselves to the castle of mud, as best they could, on footback, owing to the leak of the McCarthy's mare, in extended order. The trees link from the longest way out, down the switchback ward slitter of the land-sown route of Habanar's liveliest vintage of the brain. The unimportant Parthelonius with the moldy furbolgs and the Tuatha de Danann Googs with the rambles of from Clane and all the rest of the not muchers that he did not care the royal spit out of the ostensible mouth about. Well, what do you think he did, sir? But fakes. He just went heel tapping through the wine splith and weevely pop corks that we knee deep round his own right royal round rollicking topper's table, with the old Roderick Random Poland hat at the Laney Leary cant on him, and Mike Brady's shirt and Green's linen collar bow, and his Ganther's gaunts, and his Meccanfield swash, and his ready-made Rileys, and his pan pretuberant poncho. The body you'd pity him, the way the world is, poor he, the heart of mid Lannister, and the superminent lord of them all, overwhelmed as he was with black ruin like a sponge out of water, allocationing in bel cantos to his own Oliverian society, McGinnery's dreams of Ergen Adams, and thrumming through all to himself with diverse tongueiest through his old tears and his old plays drawl, starkened by the most regal of bleches, with a blunny casual crooner, that lurking clair air. The Blackbeard's ballad. I've a terrible lot to do, to die, to do, too terrible day. Well, what did he go and do at all? His most exuberant majesty, King Roderick O'Connor, but Arar be damned, but he finalized by lowering his woolly throat with the wonderful midnight thirst was on him, as keen as mustard. He could not tell what he did ail, that bothered he was from head to tail, and wish, leave it with the Irish boys can do. If he didn't go, sligamuggle laurel, remedy round, and suck up, sure enough, like a Trojan, and in some particular case with the assistance of his venerated tongue, wherever surplus rot gut, sore much, he left by the lazy lousers, the malt knights, and the brew curls, in the different bottoms, and the various different repliquished drinking utensils left there behind them on the premises by the whole hogs-headed Firkin family, that departed honorable homegoers and other sly, groggy subterraneanites, such as it was, fall and fall about, to the brandishing of his charming life, as toastified by his cherubimburicundinence, no matter whether it was Chatterbolted Guinnesses or Phoenix's Brewery Stout, it was or John Jameson and Sons, or Rube Cola, or, for that matter of that, O'Connelly's famous old Dublin ale that he wanted like hell, more the halibut oil or the Jesuits' tea as a fallback, of several different quantities and qualities, amounting in all to, I should say, considerably more than the better part of a gill or naggin of imperial dry and liquid measure, till welcome be from us here till the rising and the morn, till that hen of Cavan's shows her bacon egg, and Chapwell's windows stain our hoary history cold, and Father MacMichael stamps for Attic O'Clark mess, and the Latvian newsletter is seen, sold, and delivered, and all set for reset after the silence, like his ancestors to this day after him, that the blazings of their old mouldy gods may attend to them, we pray. Over opposites, the Cowrie lad in the corner, and foreignest, the stargazer of the gathering candled, the adorned of his album, and Falcon father of his familyans. He came a crash, a crupper sort of a sate on accommodation, and the very boxed in all his compose, whereupon once, behome the four for cove and trawlers, heaven hone, leave lone, Larry's on the focus, and Fawn McHugh, Browler at the wheel. One to do and one to dare, par by par, the peerless pair, even here and over there, with his full TD all to do on the fleur of his feet, and the feels of the fumes in the wakes of his ears, are wine man from Barley home, he just slumped to throne.
So sailed the stout ship Nancy Hands from Lick away for Nottenlander, as who has come returns. Farvel, fair noon. Goodbye. Now follow we out by Starlow.
Stout ship Nancy Hands.
I was like, I couldn't tell if it was Nancy Hands or Nancy Hans.
Always go with the accent if you can. So
I'll get myself in trouble with that.
And that was chapter 2-3, part 2. Was it part 2? No, it was part 4. Oh my god, my document's out of date. That was 2-3. That was chapter 2-3, part 4 from Finnegans Wake. Taylor, how are you feeling after listening to that?
It's so listening to it is much harder than looking at it on the page.
Mm-hmm.
As you look at it, you can see them kind of like playing with the language. It's like if someone misheard someone else speaking and then they took it down, you could see what they were getting at.
Mm-hmm.
Like their little words bastardized all throughout. And they're just like intermingled with actual like recognizable words. To the point where I'm like, I can't tell if I'm going insane or not, or if I'm like getting it.
I mean, it could be both. But they may not be mutually exclusive. And then so listening to it, that was a harder thing for you, just in terms of
I think, well, as I was reading it like out loud, I was just like, as I stopped to like actually vocalize it, I was tripping myself up. But you kind of had the music of the prose already down, and that made it a lot easier to listen to.
Yeah, I think TJ and I are starting to get a lot more adept at Joyce's voice.
Toby's always been good at it. I am definitely picking up like that last section. 2 months ago,
Yeah.
Toby had been like, I would have been like, I can't.
No, you really hit a stride today. You got that.
I've been doing that lately. You know, I got sick, and all of a sudden my brain was like, hey, guess what you know now? You know?
Oh, yeah, that's the sickness that kicked it into gear. Yeah, I do want to explain to our listeners about the breakdown. There is that usually when I break down a segment, it's pretty easy. I can usually look and say, okay, here's a paragraph break, or here is a section break, or something. But in this section, there is an 7 or 8 page section without a single break. It's a single paragraph, and I thought I don't want to do an injustice to Joyce by breaking it in the middle of a paragraph and having different voices. So I thought, well, since Taylor's doing us a big favor, just appearing on the podcast, I was like, okay, this week, what we'll do is we'll break it down in a slightly different way, and then I will fall on the grenade that is that giant paragraph of abuse that's being heaped on HCE.
At some point, we flipped the page, and I just looked up, like, this is still going?
Yes.
I had the similar kind of thing where I thought, okay, the next page turn is the last page turn. And I turned the page expecting to see the line drawn through the page, and it wasn't there. I went, oh no, I have another 3 pages to go. And,
we're still in this.
Yeah, that was it was like coming over, being lost in the desert and feeling like just over the next dune is the ocean. You come over the dune and then there's more desert. You go, oh,
there's just more desert.
Just keep. Not that Finnegans Wake is a desert of any kind, but I mean, there's so much going on here. There's so much fun at this pub, but listening to it, you would hardly know about fun, and definitely about drink. Lots of drink.
Oh yeah, there was one part I probably laughed the most I've laughed in 25 episodes. But you cannot make a limousine lady out of a Hillman minx. It also reminded me of the show Righteous Gemstones, and there's a line from it that Taylor and I quote all the time, and it came in my head the second I read it. Keep in mind the humor of Righteous Gemstones is supposed to be like, not politically correct. It's supposed to be a parody of this religious family. But this one character just says, "You dumb, stupid hill person," and it just came in my head the second that line came up, and so I was trying not to just bust out laughing.
Right, but it is. I mean, it's a very, very much a Pygmalion kind of moment. What was it? The Hillman minx, the limousine lady of a Hillman minx.
No. That's there are rap songs that have said similar things in worse words, but that's a nice way for a mother or someone in your family to be like, should you really be with this person?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of things popped out in there. One of the things that popped out for me is that I always try to bring in sort of some Joyce content that I found over my travels during the week. And one of the things that I was going to bring up this week, and then thought in the preamble, and then thought, it doesn't fit. I'll mention it in a future episode. So I took it out of the running order and just dropped it down into later in the document. And then the reference that the thing that I was about to talk about actually shows up in this reading. And so it's a couple of episodes ago, we talked about Tommy Mackay and his Ramones Finnegans Wake mashup. He created Finnegans Dreams. And incidentally, Tommy Mackay is going to come on Wake to read with us at some point.
Beautiful.
Because he's Scottish, so we're going to get some real brogue in to do some.
I'm just going to sit back on that one and just let it happen.
So the whole Wake on stage thing is not a new thing, but there was another stage production that was directed in Portugal, which is called In the Beginning is the Void. And so that was a line on page 378. In the beginning is the void, in the muddle is the sound dance, and thereafter you're unbewised again, vun voice valsa. Obviously biblical connection. And so this was a stage production directed by Bartholomew Ryan, who directed this production in Lisbon in Portugal by a group called the Loafing Heroes, who are on Instagram, and I'm going to link to those in our show notes. But it was just sort of, and this is a musical production of an interpretation of Finnegans Wake, which is really very interesting. And it's just fun. I love finding these moments, these quotations that are 400 pages into this tome, that someone's found something like that. It always gives me great joy to see that someone's found something to grab onto that's not in the first 20 pages. Like I said, like in the design of this edition, it has the first thunder word, but only because it's on the first page, I think. So a lot of people only get that far. So I did reach out to Bartholomew to ask if he minded if we feature on the podcast. I didn't hear back, so I'm assuming he wouldn't mind too much. And I will link to the YouTube trailer for that production, which is now finished. It was in Lisbon last month. So anyway, that was sort of a serendipitous little connection, and I didn't really expect to be talking about this, but it came up in this chapter.
Yeah. Did anything jump out to you, Taylor, from reading any lines?
It felt like he got like really close to name dropping the book, but as if like someone had misheard him.
Yeah.
So on 375, he says, "You have loss of fame from Wimmigan's fake." It sounds like a drunk just trying to be like, "You're gonna get it, bud. This is the one."
Yeah, and it's and that's a pun on the song Finnegans Wake. So. So lots of fun at Finnegans Wake. So you'll have loss of fame from Wimmigan's fake, and so he's corrupting that way, and loss of fame from Wimmigan. Yeah, that's maybe an internalized criticism. Lots of stuff going on. I mean, it's interesting, that whole section, that big chunk that I read. I don't know what. I mean, I really started to get the sense that it was like a cascade of voices, lots of different opinions, and it felt a lot to me like those old, in the 1970s, there would be theatre creators like Charles Marowitz would do things like they would take a play and they would cut it all up into individual lines, and they would throw it in the air, and then they'd reassemble it and then perform it that way. Like that kind of dramaturgy. A lot of this felt like that, because I didn't feel like a lot of these lines were interacting with each other or speaking to one another so much that it was kind of like it felt kind of like going to a sold out baseball game and trying to write down the crowd noise. Like
there's a line that I keep getting this voice of like, in the same paragraph, which is 7 pages long, so it's really hard to just say in the same paragraph. But on 376, a couple lines after, "You can't make a limousine lady out of a Hillman Minx," there's then insulting the person that they're probably talking about who's dating this person. "You've gotten Hoovier, a 12-stone Hoovier, full lens, a 12-stone Hoovier, in your corpus entis, and it scurves you right." It's like we're talking about her, but now we're insulting you as well. And I'm wondering like who. It's that quick switch in perspective and being able to defend and insult somebody.
Yes.
Yeah,
so it does feel like maybe not so much a dialogue or an argument, or different voices that are coming over the top of one another. And it is really interesting because when you go to any kind of large event when you've got 20,000 people in the same venue, there's this crowd noise, and trying to, if you were to go to a Taylor Swift concert and try to write down the conversations that are happening on top of one another as people are waiting for the concert to begin, it would become this kind of cacophony, and maybe you wouldn't pick things out, or maybe you'd pick out individual things. Some things would be profound and some things would be profane, and there'd be different kinds of things. So it's a really... and it's one of those things that obviously this as a cold read we don't prepare for this by going in and sort of figuring out what's happening. So it was something that really kind of struck me after a while of going, everything felt like an interjection. Everything felt
Yeah.
like an exclamation of some kind.
There's this weird social thing, and I noticed it when we were in Italy. I don't know why this was when the first time I noticed it, but when you're in a conversation with a small group of people, 3 or 4 people, there is this patience and this like almost expectation to you hear the person say the thing to completion, and then you can continue the conversation, right? But there's a moment where you hit en masse where if you hear something to your right, you can completely turn away from the person you're talking to, turn to the person on your right, engage in that conversation, hope the person on your left is still there to continue the conversation, but if they're not, it's totally fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's this ability to hop around in conversations and hear different things.
Mm-hmm.
That is, if there were 4 people and I just turned away from you, you'd be like, "That's rude. That's rude as all get out." but within a group, you're like, "No, I totally get it." You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's like a whole crowd of people exiting a venue at the same time, and everyone's talking about the same thing, about the what they're doing next, or where they're going, or why it's. And so you've made friends with people. Maybe you don't know their names, but you're all similarly linked. I'll just give the summary of what the Oxford World Classic talks about in each of these sections as read. As I said, this is from section 2-3, pages 370 to 382. Tales at the Inn, a chapter obscured by heavy drink, with teller and tale melting into each other. So from 370-23 to 373-12, Sackerson comes to clear the pub. The customers' drunken chanting resist, but eventually so you get a lot of that. And then 373-13 to 380.6, which is the big long one we've been talking about. Then the customers abuse and threaten HCE from outside. So they've been thrown out of the pub, and now they're throwing these insults through the window at HCE. And then 380.7 to close, to the end of the chapter. HCE, as King Roderick O'Connor, heel taps his way through the drink everyone had left.
So he's just drinking backwash and getting tipsy. That's gross.
But it seems like he's earned it from the way everyone's been talking about him.
So does HCE go back in the bar and say, "Wow, everyone out there is awful. I'm going to have all their drinks"?
I think so, but he also morphs into King Roderick O'Connor. The last High King of Ireland failed to turn back the Anglo-Norman invasion that led to the conquest of Ireland by England. So that's a really sort of an interesting perspective.
He failed to turn back the attackers.
Yeah. And so we got a slightly wounded HCE embodying this final king who led to this 1,000 years of conquest and pain. Yeah, it's sometimes it's good to be reminded with just how little we know. as we do these podcasts, we're like, oh yeah, we're now experts. When no, we're not experts.
No, the only thing I'm an expert on is how to get myself tongue-tied.
But that's okay. It's charming when you do it. So it's we're here to be charmed, and our listeners don't seem to mind. So thank you, listeners. We do appreciate it. So yeah. So I mean, does this drive you to want to read more James Joyce?
Honestly, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
As I was going through it, I'm like maybe this isn't like so dense as I thought it was. And then we started turning pages. I was like, all right, it's pretty dense, but it's not as not as much as a like impenetrable thing that I thought it was.
Yeah, and this is the most difficult thing he wrote. And so some of his earlier stuff is incredibly lyrical, beautiful, and descriptive. Dubliners is there's this short stories and Ulysses. I'm kind of itching to get back to Ulysses now. Having read enough of Finnegans Wake to go, okay, Ulysses it feels accessible.
Easier.
Yeah. So
and I will say once you let go of the fact that you're not reading for deep understanding, but more looking at the fun he's having on the page, this book does become a lot more accessible. It's the it's the thing that we talk about in theater education all the time, where once you understand the form, you could do whatever the heck you want with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you have to understand the form first. The bad part is sometimes it took me like 50 pages to be like, now I understand the form.
Right. Yeah. And that's always, and that's the challenge, is having the patience to get there. And so if you got to have the patience to ride out that learning process, because I think Neil said in one of the earlier episodes, he was talking about how we are so horrified by the idea of not understanding something that the instinct is to quit, is to say, it's too hard, I stop, I can't do it, when really it's all about learning the structure, and that's a big part of this. Okay, so that brings us to the end of chapter 2-3, part 4, and a long chapter. I mean, this is one of the ones our friend Lucy, who wrote the Finnegans What summary, she was very clear about how difficult she found this chapter, about how this was I think she called this a bugger of a chapter, because it is so dense. And you think, Tales from the Inn, that sounds like something I can grab onto. There's a bunch of drunk guys in a bar talking, telling stories to each other. But the reality is, as soon as you add this much drink to things, and then you add this many voices, the cacophony makes it much more challenging to navigate. But I'd be curious to hear a version of this with the multiple voices picked out. You know, if someone said, okay, we cast 30 actors to play all these different roles, and we're going to have these voices cascading, you could make an interesting short film out of Tales from the Inn, I think.
Sounds like a Steve Wright music piece just waiting to happen. You know?
So it sounds like it could be like an interesting either game, maybe not a full game, or like a VR experience, because it almost feels like you yourself are also drunk and just kind of like working your way through a crowd,
right?
Just catching these little snippets.
Yeah, and that is very interesting to think about, the reader being drunk. So it has that otherworldly quality, or that sense that you're not quite hearing things. I really like that idea that we're not as sharp as we could be, and so and as a result, that what's being said isn't as nonsensical as it actually sounds, but it's just how we're hearing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But now I know what to get Taylor for Christmas.
Okay, well, that is all the time we have for Wake. We'll return next week for a fresh new chapter, which happens to be the last chapter in book 2. Amazing that we've made it this far. I can't quite believe it.
2 more books to go.
Yes, indeed. I've been Toby Malone, joined as ever by TJ Young. A huge thanks to Taylor Hoover for joining us this week. I hope you don't regret signing on.
Not at all. It was a delight.
Good. I'm so glad that we finally got you. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week, anniversary observers. This has been Wake, a cold reading of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake, just to hear it out loud. If you've made it this far, thank you for your dedication. Join us next week for another segment of Finnegans Wake and a chat about what we've found. Wake is a Moon Street Media podcast, engineered by TJ Young and Toby Malone. Our theme song is The Ballad of Percy O'Reilly, arranged and performed by Meg Logue after James Joyce. Wake is recorded in Canada, where Finnegans Wake is in the public domain. For community and bonus content, join us at our free Patreon at patreon.com/wakepod. If you have questions about Finnegans Wake, don't ask us. We're just as confused as you are. See you next week.